What's going on, guys? Welcome to the first episode of my channel where I'm going to be talking about all things real estate and provide you with some helpful tips, learn more about the business and the industry so you can make more informed and educated decisions and help you with your finances as well. So, the first topic we're going to cover today is renting versus owning. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of renting versus owning today, and we're going to start with renting. Among the pros of renting, you have flexibility. So your lease is only going to be for a year, so you're only tied down for a year at a time. If you think you might switch jobs, have to relocate because of a job, renting might be the best option for you. Now, along those lines is your fixed expenses for each month, and it's just your rent per month for your lease term. It's set, and you know what you're going to pay, and there's no surprises because repairs are paid for by the landlord, so you won't have to worry about anything that breaks unless you break it, which is a different story. So don't go breaking stuff. Along with that comes there's no selling costs or any fees when you're done with your lease. So when you're done with your lease, you're done with your lease. There's no cost to sell your lease or anything like that. Now, one of the cons about renting is you're not sure what your lease payment is going to be the year after unless for some reason you decide to sign a long-term lease. Now, if you're not in a rent-controlled city, the landlord has discretion to jack up the rent as much as he wants, which he can use to get you out of there if he wants. For whatever reason, you've been noisy or something, or you haven't been the best tenant, he could say, oh yeah, by the way, your rent's double next year. And you're going to say, well, I'm not paying that, I'm leaving. So he can do that. He has the discretion to, if it's not a rent-controlled city. Now, rents increase every year, usually by a few percentage points to rise with inflation. So your rent will increase year to year unless you find another apartment in another location that has, different price. Maybe it's cheaper, who knows? So that is also something to consider. Additionally, if your landlord decides to sell the space, sell it outright, not rent it out, he has the right to terminate your lease within 60 days. Another pro is when you go to buy a house, you're going to have to put down a down payment. So what happens if you save this money and invest it instead? And we're going to go over that in the financial model example I laid out at the end of the video. But that is also something to keep in mind. You don't have to put up a lump sum payment besides the security deposit, which at any time should not be allowed to be no more than 1.5 months rent. So now we're going to go over home ownership. Home ownership is the American dream, as they say, but it might not be for everyone. Now I'm going to go over the pros and cons of what I mean by that. So when you own a home, it's something to call your own. So what I mean by that is you might not find the perfect home, but you say, hey, I really love the layout of this kitchen, but I'm going to update it to make it mine and how I want to do it. And you absolutely have the right and discretion to do that. So what I didn't mention earlier about renting is if you want to make the space your own, you have to ask the landlord before you do anything. Before even putting up wallpaper or painting. And if you paint, the landlord says yes, you might say yes, but you have to paint it back the color it was when you move out. You don't have to worry about that when you own a home because it's your own home. You can do whatever you want. You can make it in the walls neon pink if you want to, because there's no one to tell you can't. You have the space that you can grow into. More along the financial side, there are some unpredictable costs at times with home ownership. Yes, your fixed mortgage payment, so your monthly payments month to month. But along with home ownership comes other expenses, also called capital expenditures. If something in your house breaks, you and you alone are in charge for your repairs. And you might need to buy a new roof at some point, which is upwards of $10,000. So these are expenses that come along with owning the home. if you have a big yard and you don't want to do the yard work yourself, obviously, if you wanted to pay someone, that's another expense you got to think about. Homeownership is a lot of financial decisions, which can be a good thing and, really put you on top of budgeting your expenses and being able to have peace of mind that you have an emergency fund or anything like that, a repair fund, if any of these things arise. So, along with that, when you get a mortgage, a lot of it is going to be interest at first, but you're going to be putting equity into your property as you pay these mortgage payments. So a lot of people say, a home is like another savings account, and that's absolutely true. You are paying interest, but you are adding equity to your home. You're putting money into your home more and more until you either move or you pay off your mortgage completely. And now you have full equity in your home at that point. So it is something to keep in mind. And another thing to keep in mind is you're going to have a lot of expenses when it comes to selling your home. You're going to have closing costs, and you're going to pay a realtor fee if you decide you want to sell it with a realtor, which you absolutely should, I should say, and we'll go over that in another video. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a realtor myself, but I'll go over why you should use a realtor. Also, another thing to keep in mind, last thing we're going to discuss, is the tax benefits you get from home ownership. So you are able to write off the interest you pay on your mortgage up to a certain amount. During the first couple of years of the life of the loan, you're paying more interest than you are putting equity into your home. So you are able to write off those expenses for a little tax break, which is always nice. It's like some tax breaks. So we are going to go over a nice little financial model I did comparing the two so you can really see how these compare financially. So, class is now in session. Okay guys, I hope you can see this. We're going to walk through this together. So, we're going to compare buying a $350,000 house with renting a 2-bed, 1-bath that was just recently on and off the market for $1,950. And we're going to compare this over a period of 7 years. So if you were to rent for 7 years, or if you were to buy and live there for 7 years. And this is because the average person lives in their home for 7 years. So, $350,000 house with a down payment of 20%, which is not mandatory but typical, so we're going to use it for this example. So it's going to be $70,000. A 30-year mortgage at 3% equals monthly payments of $1,180 a month. Your property taxes are $833 a month. Shout out Uncle Sam for that lovely bit right there. Insurance is going to be about $125 a month, and repairs and miscellaneous is just averaged out over the term of the 7 years to about $200 a month. You're not going to spend $200 a month fixing things every month, but it's just the average. So total out of pocket is going to be $2,338 a month. But this doesn't factor into account the equity you put into your home, the interest you're able to write off on your taxes on the mortgage interest you're paying, the appreciation, and the opportunity cost. So when you factor all of those in, it is going to equal $2,003 per month. Now, over the 7-year period, I simplified this, you are going to be out of pocket. You are going to spend $114,240. Now, when you compare that to renting, we have the $1,950 and we have the opportunity cost, which if you took that $70,000, invested it into a Vanguard S&P ETF, which yields about 8% a year, that would come out to $466 a month. So we subtract these two. This is the money you're spending, and this is what you're saving, putting in your pocket, having it invested. Over a 7-year period, that is going to equal $124,656 out of pocket. Now, keep in mind, these aren't necessarily comparable spaces square footage wise. A $350,000 house is going to most likely get you more than 2 bedrooms and 1 bath and more square footage. So these are comparable, but it's not comparing apples to apples here. And also keep in mind that this does not include annual rent increases, which you will have. So over a 7-year period, we see that owning a home costs less than renting long term. So this is something I wanted to explain to you guys, that over the long term, renting is more expensive than owning a home. Now there's a lot of different variables here, and this is only one scenario, but over the long term of life, renting is going to be more expensive than owning. Now this also includes 7 years of home ownership. If you were to sell before 7 years, your home most likely wouldn't have appreciated as much, so there might be a break-even point where they're actually equal, or renting will be cheaper, and renting will be cheaper in the short term. So if you're not planning on living somewhere for very long, really weigh out your options, maybe even try and do the math and see which is better for you. So guys, I hope you liked this and you found this helpful. Don't forget to throw a like, subscribe to the channel,